On this conversation, I sit down with Mark MacDonald and we explore the future of church communication. Well, hey, welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab. Our goal with this podcast is conversations that empower healthy churches. So we are super glad to have another one today with Mark MacDonald. Now, Mark's been on the podcast before. He's a friend of the show. He brings so much wisdom and insight, so we're super excited to jump into that shortly. But before we do, as I often do, would love to invite you to share this with somebody. If you find it helpful, if it serves you in any way, if you could leave a review on iTunes, subscribe, send a link to someone, any of those things just helps us get these conversations out to more church leaders. And in doing that, hopefully help serve and empower more healthy churches. Now, we're going to jump into our conversation with Mark. If you aren't aware, Mark MacDonald is a church branding strategist for Be Known for Something, a national church communication and branding company that coaches pastors and churches to become relevant in their communities. He's the best-selling author of Be Known for Something, has been a guest on over 80 podcasts, written over 830 articles published in places like Lifeway Research, Worship Facility, Baptist Paper, a ton more. In over 3 decades, Mark has served as a pastor, as a marketing VP, as a creative director, and as a strategist. He's done that in one of Eastern Canada's largest agencies, his own agency. He's worked for the 3,000 plus Florida Baptist churches and at one of the largest church consulting groups. He and Tammy, his wife since 1990, have 2 grown sons in Calgary and Nashville. Mark is amazing. He is so helpful to churches, to pastors, to church leaders, and really has a heart to serve. So I'm excited, and we're going to jump into my conversation with Mark MacDonald. Mark, thank you for coming back on the Church Leadership Lab, second time in this format. We've talked in other formats.
Exactly, and it's kind of fun because every time we decide to do this format, a convention comes around us, and it's like, I don't know, the Southern Baptist Convention can just happen around us.
Isn't that sweet of them?
I know, and it's all because we decided to do this.
I know, I love it. One of the things, we asked you this last time, one of the things we ask on the podcast, what's something that doesn't make the public bio that all your friends and family know about you? But I want to share something. I think you shared this actually on the last podcast, that you have a history, you did some modeling, some acting and stuff like this. But one thing I love is when you share from your past modeling days, like you shared a Lowe's ad, and here's why I love it, is because I always see those and I'm like, who are those people? You know what I mean? Like who's the like generic dad grilling in the Lowe's ad, or who's the like fake family having a great time in the park?
Well, and
I finally met somebody who's that person.
I'm one of them. And what's really crazy is that, so I think a lot of people know that I am Canadian, and when we moved to the United States, I kept thinking, oh my goodness, well, I'm just a Canadian kid. And then when I ended up doing some modeling, and my agent had me kind of pegged, similar to what I talk about all the time. It's like in branding, you need to know what you're known for, and that, there's like a narrow little peg that you should fall into. Well, my agent said the exact same thing.
Okay.
You need to have multifacets, but you need to be one thing. And I said, well, what do you think I am? And she said, you are a standard American dad. And I thought, wow, I am a standard American. I'm Canadian.
Don't tell them, but I'm not a standard American dad.
Exactly.
Standard Canadian dad.
But when I would show up on a set, what was so crazy oftentimes is that I would be introduced to my wife for the day, who is the fake mother of my fake children. And then they would introduce me, and usually their real mother was sitting just off the camera, and then it's like, okay, you act loving, and it's just like, hi, and then it's like we had to put it on as though we were an actual family, but we are all fake families.
Yeah. Well, I finally, my quest is complete, getting to know the story of somebody who is in that. Nice. So, well, we're gonna dive into all things communication, as well as what does it look like to engage with people, which we've talked a lot about before. So I have some questions, but one of them I'm really curious about
because you are so plugged into the world of church communications, church marketing, which I know we talked last time, is we substitute the word marketing with communication so we feel better about it.
Right.
But what's something that you're seeing right now that you love, that you're seeing churches either embrace, step into, and then what's something you loathe that you're like, I don't love this?
Wow. When it comes to church, I think that, especially here at the convention, you talk to pastor after pastor after pastor, and you really do see how much they love people.
Yep. Yeah.
And really marketing, it's deciding that you have a great product and that there's a great market that needs it, and then it's just taking that product to the market in a way that they'll accept it.
Yeah.
We always say to people, like, you just got to fall in love with your audience. So fall in love with the people that are around you, fall in love with your congregation. That's easier.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's harder, but sometimes it's easier.
Yeah.
But in your community, the people that live around you, there's so many times that churches put up walls and it becomes a very internally focused thing. But when I talk to people that are here at the convention and in ministry roles, I really do know they love people.
Yeah.
And they really do want to love them so much that they give them the gospel. So I know it sounds corny, but I fall in love with people who fall in love with people.
Yeah. That is very attractive, right? When you see people who are like, I just love my people.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's to a point where if you really do love somebody, you really do care when they're going through hard times. And sometimes that's really what we need to all lean into is what are the hard times that they are going through. We always talk about needs, concerns, and goals because those are the needs and concerns are the things that they're waking up, and it's just it's weighing heavy on them.
Yeah.
And I think if we have anybody around us that we love, whether it's a spouse or a child or even a coworker who just says, you know what, it's just weighing really heavy on me. If you really love them, you lean in and it's like, what is it?
Yeah.
And if you can help them, then that's where the joy of ministry happens. And I think that we just need to lean into people's needs and concerns. And then ultimately, I think that it's connecting to the gospel that has to happen, but it shouldn't happen as fast as sometimes we do it.
Sure.
Like sometimes it's like, if somebody's really, really hungry and you're not giving them food, but it's like, let me walk you through the Romans road.
Yeah.
Well, they're just thinking, I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to love them on a temporal level and then love them on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to take a quick minute and invite you to the next Healthy Church Summit coming up on September 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Listen, it's clear something powerful is happening and God is on the move. Moments of revival are springing up all over, and the fall launch of your ministry is right around the corner. So the question that we want to answer in this virtual event is, how do you set up systems, processes, and tools to best help in the work of ministry? We're going to dive into what it can look like to use the latest in church tech as a tool to help support the work that God is doing in your church and in your community. We're also going to have some awesome breakout sessions where you will be able to learn from expert guest teachers on things like digital strategies that actually work in 2024 and beyond, revitalizing your connection process, using AI in ministry, and so much more. And of course, we have some awesome giveaways. By registering, you'll enter a chance to win a getaway for two, an Apple Watch, AirPods Max, $250 gift card, and more. Registration is open now, September 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern. Make sure to click the link in the show notes and register today.
Now, what about something that you're seeing, church communications wise, that you're like, I don't know about that, or maybe things that you have seen that you're like, if I could snap my fingers and have every church change this thing that you see often.
Oh my goodness. So it's a wake-up call when, again, at a conference like this, we're looking at a lot of websites.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of websites that suck.
Yeah.
I know that could be a bad word to a lot of people, but websites
But it's
suck.
true. But it's true.
And the thing is that we like to come alongside of a church and coach them, and we continuously say to them, this is actually quite simple, but you're not going to find it easy.
Yeah.
And that's something that just has to turn on in people's brains.
Yeah.
That, you know what, like oftentimes people go, well, I'm glad you told me that, but I think I already knew that. And it's like, then why don't we do that?
Yeah, that is true. I mean, the difference between easy and simple and easy is massive. But simplicity, especially in showing up and being known for something, that simplicity it's actually far more difficult, but it's far more powerful.
Oh, for sure. And interestingly enough, I mean, going back to the Lowe's commercials that I've done, oftentimes I show up on set and they introduce to me that you're going to be installing this plumbing thing, or you're going to go out and use a riding lawnmower that I've never ridden before.
Yeah.
But it's similar to good theater. Once you rehearse it, it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
And what churches need to do is find somebody who's already done it to help them rehearse through it and then actually do it, and it just becomes so much easier. So, oftentimes church just thinks, I just have no idea how to do it. Well, don't flounder in that. Like, reach out to somebody that actually has done it and allow them to rehearse what needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, especially because things can move so fast, and it is not the only thing on the plate for a church leader or pastor, but it can be so powerful when you find the person who it's the only thing, or they're like, all I think about is how to help people like you in your situation do this better and better. That's where it's so wise to leverage that and save the work.
I know we were talking before we started to record that the whole concept oftentimes in ministry, it's just tough to say, well, we need 20 more people, so you just hire up 20 more people.
Right.
And oftentimes it just doesn't happen that way. So usually you beg, borrow, and steal. It's like, oh, you have a little extra time. Oh, you're young. You actually know the internet, and why don't you do this stuff?
Yeah.
And I think the Gen Z and even older than Gen Z oftentimes thinks, well, I don't know how to do it, but I can watch a YouTube video and get it done.
Right.
And there are a lot of YouTube videos out there, and you can probably do it, but to have a live living coach or a live living person come alongside of you, it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
And also YouTube videos, oftentimes you watch one and they'll say one way, and then you watch another and they'll say another way.
Well, that you just can't replace wisdom and experience, right? The mistakes that somebody else paid to, or that cost them to make,
right,
that now
exactly.
Hopefully they can come alongside you, and that can be so valuable. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We just talked about how fast things can move, and certainly when it comes to social media, when it comes to digital life, right? We were talking just a little bit ago about AI, about just all of that. Things move fast. So as you look out, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the next 5-7 years. What does digital engagement look like? What path does it continue down? And then maybe tie that into some ways that church leaders can think about what they're doing and maybe even get ahead a little bit.
Wow, that's a huge question, and it's one of those questions where I can dream big. I know AI is going to be with us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Why? Because it makes our lives so much easier.
Yeah.
I know Apple just made their big announcement about how AI stands for Apple Intelligence. Isn't that what they're saying?
I'm sure the marketing folks there were like, let's tie this in.
Yeah, exactly. And so AI, I think that it's he who knows how to use AI the best will win. So the church is oftentimes very reticent to accept things And yes, AI is scary.
Yeah.
But we've also lived with AI for quite some time. I mean, Alexa or an Echo or Siri or whoever you call on to give you an answer.
Whoever's the person you beckon to. Yeah.
Exactly. That's just an AI program. And so what we need to do is not necessarily trust it immediately, like treat it like an intern, I think is the way people are saying.
Yeah.
Like ask it for some solutions and then really try to improve it yourself. And that's really where, like, know yourself enough so that you can make it your brand.
Yeah.
And it's not always great at being on brand. However, there's a lot of them that are visual now that I know Firefly with the Adobe suite of products, you can put in create something using these hex codes and like it'll add your brand colors and all of that. But on the church side of things, I guess that, when they're using AI, just always verify everything. It comes off the internet, and because it has learned through the internet, it's probably skewing just a little bit on the liberal side.
Sure.
So add a conservative voice to it. The joy of most of them is that it'll learn from us, and as many conservatives need to be on there so that we pull them back to the biblical truths.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, like you mentioned the visual aspect of it, and I think of that was one of the difficult things where, man, we have a need for a lot of content, and social media is very visual, whether it's photo, video, but man, creating that stuff can be a lot, especially if you're not native to it. And so I think that'll be interesting too, right? To see how that continues to morph and change, and tools hopefully are created that make that kind of a lower barrier of entry. So,
well, it's a good thing and then it's a bad thing. So the reason why we're struggling so much in the communication field is because of the amount of noise that's around us.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are, it's rather noisy around us.
I think people have heard probably.
Somebody's talking right through this wall right now.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that the amount of noise is driving everyone to half listening. Well, AI produces so much content so much faster than we have all been doing it. And it's been noisy before, and now with AI throwing its hand into it, I mean, people can write an article or a blog post or a sermon or whatever, like rather quickly on AI.
Yeah.
And you can, so if you're struggling with, web content, it'll create a lot of web content, and then you can say double the amount of words, and it'll just double the amount of words.
Yeah.
So the amount of content that's going to be produced through AI, for those people who are using it, I think it's going to add an awful lot of noise, and that's going to even propel us more to figure out how do we break through that noise. Yeah,
that's a really good point, because that's the power of, I mean, I know what you help churches figure out is like, how do you figure out that single thread? How do you figure out what you're really known for? Because that when you are uniquely yourself and this is who we are, I think that is one of the things that helps cut through and is really powerful. But you're so right. I mean, it's already noisy. It's going to get noisier.
And it sure is.
And I actually think there will still be that human element, because I mean, just sometimes our creativity and the things that we can think through, I think still knowing when to employ that is going to help cut through as well.
Yeah, for sure. And ultimately, I'm praying that this AI non-personal world will drive us to a personal relationship.
Yeah.
And ultimately everyone needs a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. But I think that a lot of people, and Gen Z, the research is saying how that they're really reaching out to a community. They're looking for community.
Big time.
And in fact, the Pew Research study that was done about the nuns, the NONES, I mean, it's very evident that they're concerned about their overall community and what the church is doing in the overall community, but they ultimately want community.
Yeah.
They want to feel that community. And I don't know whether you have hugged up to Alexa lately, but she doesn't give too much community.
Sure, yeah.
And so I think that even though we see it as almost a cold, non-personal, I think that because it's going to be everywhere, will drive us back to, I just need a hug.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think that's a good reminder. Like, don't lose that, because that's that unique value that will become less and less.
And I think that you need to be not anti-AI.
Yeah.
Because the younger you are, I mean, every church says, I want to try to get as many young people in here as possible.
Yeah.
If you're perceived as an anti what is helping them, they will see you as against them. And so you need to be known for something. Yeah,
that's wise. I'm curious, this question, and this isn't still in the realm of what we're talking about, but one thing I wanted to hear your thoughts on when it comes to like the identity, that thing people are known for. I know the branding has a lot to do with that, right? Like, how do you show up? How can a church know when it's time to hit the reset button on that? When it's time to say, hey, we need to redo this. We need to kind of wipe the slate clean and take a new approach. That's not or at least it shouldn't be a short and easy process. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So interestingly, people like to vote with their attendance. So if you're struggling with attendance for anything, whether it's a sub-brand, an individual ministry, or whether you're struggling with your overall church attendance, a lot of church are in stagnation or sadly in decline.
Yeah.
And I think that what is a sad truth is stop doing things that aren't working, and if you just take a look and you just think it just seems like all of our ministries are in decline or all of our ministries are in stagnation, then do something different.
Yeah.
Like that's the wake-up call. We joke as communications people, oftentimes there's always somebody in the church that just says, I created this this event, and no one came, and it was all because of communication. And like they look at us and they say, if you would have just communicated it more, then we would have had people attend. And we all know as communications people that it doesn't matter how much communication for some events, no one will ever want to attend it. And that's where we're at with the church. If it's not working, it's time to do something different. And not expect this, like everybody expects something different, and then they're just doing the exact same thing, and it's just not going to work.
I've had that conversation before, when you're sort of like, how do I tell this person? It wasn't the communication. It was what you gave me to communicate.
If there was just one more page on the website that talked about it.
Because people decide that, right? They're like, I was going to sign up for this ministry, but I needed 3 more paragraphs of text to read, and so now I'm not,
No, exactly. Or, we sometimes get so hung up on the logo, and it's like, oh my goodness, what will the logo look like? And it's like, you know what, there's not a lot of people that just say, you know what, I want to buy that product, but I don't like their logo. And we certainly want you to have a professional look and something that looks as good as what everybody else is doing.
Right.
But, anyone who has done any design work knows people are like, oh, I don't know, make that a little bit shorter. And it's like, it doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't. But, and every church communicator listening to this, church designer, whatever, is like, yes and amen right now.
Oh my goodness.
Every pastor listening, just trust us. And
and oftentimes people look at things and they just think, well, I guess they want me to change something. So what if you just made that a little less that, and then, I mean, if you ask, you got to be prepared for it. And then if it really doesn't matter, just go ahead and make the change.
Just do it. Yeah. Well, one of the things I know that you do that I think is awesome is mystery visits and showing up to places and kind of being a guest and seeing that experience. I'm curious, what are some of the things that you often experience, maybe that church leaders can learn from for things to be aware of in their own ministry context?
Oh my goodness. So people get used to things when they're around them all the time. I'm here for a week for this convention. When I go home, no matter what time I go home, whether it's right after a meal or whether everyone's in bed and I'm trying to get to the bedroom, I walk through the door from the garage into the house, and there's always that little smell that it's like, I wonder what was for supper, or I wonder, and like moments later it's just gone.
Yeah.
And people in the church walk by things all the time, and they don't see it at all, but then a new person walks in and then they see stuff, a chip in the wall that everyone just knows that there's always been a chip in the wall right there.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, so I was just at another conference and I was one of the speakers, and the pastor said, well, since you're in our church and you do mystery visits, why don't you walk through the lobby? And I said, okay, I tell you what, I don't even need to go back through the lobby. Can you just tell me why there's a noose hanging from your ceiling?
Oh my goodness.
And the pastor looked at me and he said, we don't have a noose hanging from our ceiling. And I said, I walked by it. And so we walk out and I said, it's right there. And he laughed and he goes, that's what we ring the church bell, and we pull the noose. And he doesn't see it as a noose, but he sees it as the church bell ringer.
That's how we ring the bell.
But the average person from the community who walks in off the street doesn't go, oh, look, there's the way that they ring the noose, ring the bell. Instead, they see a noose, and it's not all that inviting when you walk in.
Yeah.
So,
that's a great point, though.
There's crazy things that, take on the role.
Yeah.
Every pastor needs to, the next time that they're walking into their church, pretend like you're the very first time that you've ever walked in. And if you want to bring children in, instead of walking down the children's hallway, get on your knees and walk down at their level and see what they're seeing, and then make sure you're changing things.
That's really cool, and that's good advice. And it's hard to do, but it's so important. I love that analogy too, because I've done that with my own home. You walk in, you're like, oh yeah, this is a new thing for me, and then quickly it's not anymore.
And I think if you're getting ready to sell your house, you oftentimes do it. Like you walk through, or with the help of a realtor, which we call a church mystery visit.
Yeah.
The realtor walks through and is like, I think I would probably clean that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Or I would, instead of the fuchsia on the walls, let's paint that a little bit.
A little more neutral.
Exactly.
100%. No, it's awesome. Well, another question for you. One thing we've asked you before, we ask everybody on this podcast. Again, the goal is conversations that empower healthy churches. So what is one essential component or a essential component of a healthy church for you?
It goes back to what we just talked about community. And oftentimes when you're in a leadership role, you believe that there's community going on.
Yeah.
But the leadership of the church needs to check somehow with other people in the church, whether they're finding community. Are the kids finding community? Is there if a church has a Christian school, oftentimes the Christian school has a community, and then there's the other kids that don't go to the Christian school, and they get ostracized, so they find it hard to break in. And all of those things, this bullying thing that everybody always, it's like all of a sudden everyone talks about, I was kind of bullied as a kid. Yeah, we were all bullied as a kid. So how do you create a community where you are loving each other, and how do you instill into some of your teachers, how do you break through all of that stuff? And then when it comes to adults, men need more community in the church. They need to have outlets to get together, and they'll probably want to do something. So whether it's hunting or fishing or painting or helping Habitat for Humanity or building a missionary house or whatever it is. Women tend to do it really well in the church. Even they can struggle a little bit, but really lean into community and what that means.
Yeah, that's really good. All right, well, remind people, we're going to do our final 5 again because it was a little while since we've done it, and I'd like to hear refreshed answers.
Okay.
Before we do, just remind people how they can connect with you, how they can learn more. I know you have a ton of resources for free too, so just tell people where they can go for that.
Yeah, I guess that beknownforsomething.com is the easiest way, and then I'm on all the social media, but ultimately all that needs to happen is go to beknownforsomething.com, click on our social media links at the bottom.
Yeah.
If they go to the subscribe link, which is under our articles, I write a lot of articles. I think my last one that I published was 862.
Ooh.
So because people say you're everywhere, we try to find where everywhere is and then send them an email with an article every week. But then also on those my social media links, I'm always trying to give tips and tricks and just help people.
Yeah, just a shout out, your social media is awesome because sometimes you'll show examples of being known for the wrong thing or some things that I know I appreciate when
everybody always says, where do you find those things? And thankfully a lot of people send me stuff, and then I also they just happen everywhere. Like how many people just don't know how to do it.
If you have the eye for it, which I know that you do. So we'll link to all that too for people just so it's easy for them to find it. But let's jump into our final 5, okay?
Okay.
All right.
I've forgotten what your final 5
I know.
is. So
perfect. That was my
here
hope.
Goes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. First one book you'd recommend to church leaders. We're going to link to your book already. And so one book in addition to that.
Oh my goodness, I have just totally blanked. I mean, there's just so many. The Tipping Point comes to mind. It's an old book, but it's a goodie.
Oldie but a goodie.
Yeah,
I love
exactly. Because the tipping point is, like, sometimes you think, how many times do I have to say this for it to actually stick?
Yeah.
And that book talks a lot about how crazy occurrences cause things to stick.
It's awesome.
It's really eye-opening.
Love it. All right, number 2, and we only accept honest answers. What is the last thing that you listened to? Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. Last thing you listened to?
Oh my goodness. So a crazy thing. My wife got tickets to a Dave Matthews concert.
Yeah.
And I have to confess, it was the first secular concert I've ever been to.
Is that right?
I know. I all of a sudden I just felt all bad, and it's like all these Christian concerts that I've gone to, and then it's like Dave Matthews Band. Whoa, that'll be awesome. So what did I listen to last? I have created a Dave Matthews playlist.
Nice.
Because I just wanted to learn some music in order to go to the concert.
Yeah.
And so when I got to my desk the last time, it was still there, and I just turned it on. Listened to it.
I love it. All right, number 3, favorite piece of technology or software that you're using these days?
Oh my goodness. So I mentioned Firefly.
Yeah.
And I'm just fascinated by technology, and I'm fascinated by things that all of our lives, we've just said, in the creative world, we'll always be around because they'll always need creativity. And this technology is showing how much creativity is locked into somebody really smart has created something, and they've made it so that it helps creatives, and just the palettes that you get to work with, and I'm just fascinated by it.
Yeah, it is wild, and it's beginning.
Yeah, and it's just beginning because I want to say, and there's some really bad outcomes that you can get.
Yeah,
but it's as bad as it'll ever be because it's just going to continue to improve.
Yeah.
So probably by the time that people are listening to this in 2030. They're going to go, remember when they thought it was bad?
Remember they talked about Firefly?
Yeah, I know.
Also, I appreciate your optimism for the longevity of this podcast.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
We're going to be here at the 2030 SBC.
They'll keep doing the conference around our podcast episodes.
I mean, as long as we keep doing this, they'll keep having a conference.
It's really kind of them. All right, number 4, quote, piece of advice, anything like that either stuck with you or that you've heard recently that really resonated with you.
So a client yesterday came up to me and said, you coached me for a full year and there's one thing that has stood out in their minds, and I'm just like, oh no, what is that going to be?
Yeah.
And I said, so can I know what that is? And he said, you said consistency is next to godliness.
Yeah.
And if anybody who knows me and anyone who knows branding, it is all about consistency and locking in a certain style. And I think that the church blows that wide open all the time, that, you know, when they could have chosen the word that they used before, they decide to choose a different word, or if they choose a font or a color, like all of those things. So consistency is next to godliness. Godliness is always the number one.
It's always number one.
Consistency would be number two.
That's wise. All right, last one. What's one thing you'd like to communicate to our audience of church leaders?
Wow. Be encouraged. I mean, you can only do what you can do. Find other people who can do it better and put them around you so that you can learn from them. And I guess the encouragement is that we know who holds the future.
Yeah.
And ultimately we just need to trust him. All of these things are no surprise to him.
Yeah.
They're a surprise to us. And God just wants us to use them as they come along.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And especially as we talked about things like AI and technology moving fast and all of that, I know there can sometimes be a spirit of fear around that. And regardless of how amazing technology becomes, none of it is surprised, you know, to the Lord. None of it is a surprise to God. And, you know, like
somebody said, has it ever occurred to you that nothing has ever occurred to God? Because he just knows.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to just keep leaning into and trusting and knowing that he controls the outcomes and he wants the very best for us.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you for coming on again. Thank you for being here so that they could throw the convention around us.
Exactly.
I'm sure everyone's really appreciative. We just so appreciate you, and thank you for being here.
I appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you to those of you listening, watching this. We hope it's been helpful. Would definitely encourage you to share this. If it has been, send a link, leave a review, subscribe, all the podcast things. We would love it. Helps us get these conversations to more church leaders, hopefully help more churches, and hopefully empower more healthy churches. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.